Hello everyone. Welcome to the Union Pacific Railroad Evanston Subdivision, an N-scale inspired HO layout under construction. My name is Daryl Kruse, owner and builder of the layout, and your host for episode 14 of season 2021. This episode is an update on the layout, what I've done in the last week, and I have extended the layout an additional 8 feet, so that's a major accomplishment. Also did a number of other things, did some powering of frogs in the throat here of the staging yards, and then I also did some electrical animation or automation of some of the turnouts as well. Here you kind of get a good idea of how the finished look of the layout is going to be. You have the ceiling painted white, the sheetrock on the walls, the layout, and then we're going to have a skirting that will go down to the floor, and the floor will be either painted. I'm thinking of some kind of cushiony flooring to put in to save my feet a little bit. Then you'll have, of course, the layout. I did add a couple of things. Did put a UP5 panel so that I could plug in. Added some signals. Here you get an idea of how I attached the skirting. I basically super glued clothespins to the fascia and then used the clothespins to attach the skirting. Did put in some Atlas signals. Picked these up from Lombard Hobbies. Got two of them, one for this location and the other location is going to be by Evanston. This would be a good place coming out of the yard and starting the run across the main line that you will have this signal here to control your movements across the Evanston Subdivision. So you have two signals there for each track to control movement across this control point, which includes two crossovers. So both tracks going in both directions can cross over from one to the other. On the other side of the control point, we have some details west signals. You can kind of get an idea of what they look like compared to the Atlas. To be honest with you, I like these better than the Atlas. The Atlas looks good also. I'm glad I have it. But these have a little bit better detail as far as the fidelity of the stairs or the ladders going up, the size of the post. I just think they look a little bit better, a little bit more detail on the hoods and the signals themselves. As I said, I did animate also the turnouts, and that you can operate them with a push button. So we're able to just push this button here, and we have movement of the turnouts. And both turnouts for a crossover move together. So you push the button and you're able to control the movement. For the staging yard throat, here you have the other one. For the staging yard throat, I just am doing it with my throttle to throw the switches. But here, I'm not going to do that all the way through the whole layout, so I'm going to have push buttons to be able to control movement on the crossovers. Just makes it easier. These can also be controlled by the dispatcher at the control panel. So when we actually have operating sessions, the push buttons won't work. Only the dispatcher will have control. And there we have our 60-inch radius curve. That looks awesome. And then another 8 feet of bench work. So I was able to extend the bench work out a little bit. So the main line goes all the way through Morgan and heads east towards the Taggart tunnels. Those locomotives there, by the way, are old Atherns. Those belong to my father. And he's passed away about 20 years ago, but he and I, of course, started railroading together. That's how I got into N scale. He switched over to HO, and then finally I have just this last year. But those are two locomotives that I have still left over from his layout. So I have a lot of sentimental value with those. Probably display them somewhere. Here we have what's going to be Morgan. Still have a little bit of plywood to add there, that little gap. But there's going to be Morgan there. So things are looking pretty good. We are extending it further and further. Got a long ways to go yet, but it's good that we're making progress. And let's see, can't have an update without watching trains running on the main line. This is a crude oil tank train headed up by a couple of Athearn locomotives. This is a ES44AC number 5529 in the lead. And then there is an SD70M. See, these are both by Athearn. And they have Tsunami 2 decoders in them. All right, I want to imagine that these are lit up, and we have all reds except the left top is green, and it just got knocked down to red as we go through the control point. The green will give us not only authority to move through this control point, which includes the two crossovers, but also authority to continue beyond the control point and all the way to the next control point, which is at Devil's Slide. This train holds, I think it's like 34 cars total, 32 crude oil tank cars by scale trains, and then a couple of buffer cars, covered hoppers by Walthers, and then two locomotives at the head, and then one DPU unit pushing from the rear. So here we can see how the trains are going to look on the Evanston Sub. This is a 60-inch radius curve that we're watching, and the train looks awesome on it. In the intro to each of these videos that I'm doing, you may have noticed that I say this is an N-scale inspired HO layout, and I did model N-scale for 50 years. The things I liked about it the most is that you could do broad curves and you could have a high scenery to track ratio. I also tried to have as large of aisles as possible. So this is a little bit different kind of HO layout. A lot of times the HO layouts, you have as much track crammed into the space that you have. So my layout, I'm going to concentrate on having as broad a curves as possible, and then a high scenery to track ratio. So it's going to hopefully be an HO layout, but have the qualities of N-scale. Luckily, I have a large basement to try to make that happen. So here's the whole train all the way to the end of where we are at this point. 32 cars, I believe. And it doesn't quite make it out of the staging yard, but almost. So we have enough main line to almost get an entire train out onto the main line. So this is 34 cars plus 3 locomotives. I'm hoping to have train lengths of about 40 cars for every train. So that's about, when I say 40 cars, that means 40 cars of average length of 60 feet. So if we're talking auto racks, it won't be quite that many cars, but the staging yard tracks are in the low to mid 30 feet long. So with 3 locomotives, should be able to do 40 cars or more. I think my coal trains are going to be like 50 cars, since coal cars aren't quite 60 feet in length. And so we're backing back into the staging yard, since this is as far as we can go. It's been interesting working with the distributive power. I am finding that you have to have them running exactly the same speed. If you don't have it the same speed, if just a little bit of difference, you can get a lot of pressure on the cars. If the pushing locomotives are going faster than the pulling locomotives, it definitely can cause some derailments just because of the pressure put on the couplers. Have not been real impressed with HO couplers so far. A lot of people have said you're going to need to kind of switch out a lot of the couplers. The ones I like the least are the scale train couplers on their auto racks. They're just really long couplers, and they really backing up don't do too well. So I'm going to have to take a look at doing something different with that. I also don't like the fact that the couplers make the cars far apart from each other. They don't seem to be close enough to each other. But anyway, that's kind of down the road. So we're back into the staging yard successfully. So things are looking good so far. Oh, I want to mention that you notice I have the fascia painted white. I'm going to leave it white for the staging yard, but for the actual layout, it's going to be painted some kind of a grayish brown color. All right, coming up, what I'm going to be doing next, I'm going to be framing this section. This is where the Taggart tunnels are going to go. So from Morgan, go further east. This curve is going to contain a couple of bridges and the Taggart tunnels along with the Weber River. It's going to continue along the walls here to this section here is going to be Devil's Slide. So this week I'm hoping to frame all this with 2x3 lumber, and then also put sheetrock on the frame, tape and float it, and then paint the ceiling. Can I do all that in 1 week? I kind of doubt it, but I'm going to try so that we can continue to work on the bench work moving eastward out of Morgan. So hopefully we'll have this whole area done here. And then it's going to continue on. This will be Echo Canyon and that section, and then that's going to be Evanston down there. But before we get to Evanston, there's going to be a peninsula here where we're going to continue to Castle Rock. So this will all be peninsula. It's going to be 4 feet of aisles, a minimum of 4 feet of aisles on both sides of the peninsula. The peninsula is going to be like 8 feet wide. There's Patrick Mahomes. And then it's going to come here through Wasatch. And then finally into Evanston in this area here. Now Evanston on the prototype is not really a whole lot there. I'm going to model Evanston like it continued to be a major yard. So it's going to be like a major yard like Green River, but it's actually going to be Evanston. So that's going to be all yard all the way through here. And by this point, it's going to be about 14-inch higher. So from Evanston, it's going to curve and go through by the furnace and actually start a second level. Hey, from here is going to be the other throat of the staging yard, and then that throat is going to go into a helix that's going to be above the monitors of the dispatcher here. This is the dispatcher station. So he'll be inside the helix, and then the helix will go up to the second level. So there will be a second level that's going to go from Evanston and then through the Aspen tunnels. There's going to be West Vaco, Trona mines, And that's just going to go along the wall. It's not going to go above the peninsula. So a lot to look forward to. It's going to take me a long time. Hopefully I'll have it all done by the end of next summer. Here's a bunch of N-scale stuff I need to post yet on my website for those who are buying some of the N-scale equipment that I'm selling. I got to get these signals up there. I need to test them all out first. What else we got? We have some UP water tenders for the excursion trains. Going to be putting those on the website. The link to the website is in the description. Lots of vehicles yet to put up. Tons and tons of vehicles. But that's where we are at this point. So Patrick and I, thank you for watching this video. I hope you have a great day, everyone. Take care.